Yeah, greetings, Freedomville here, and another episode of My Weird Life. And this is kind of a two-parter. It kind of spans all the way from when I was a kid, all the way to today, my love of gaming, and my kind of lackadaisic outlook on sports. We're going to start with sports, because part of the reason I actually probably dig gaming as much as I do, and why for years when I didn't game, because lived in the woods, lived in vehicles, handheld systems were crap, kind of missed out on a lot. So anyhow, Freedomville, like, subscribe. Let's get into it. When I look back at it, the reason I was never really into sports is that I'm not really a sports type of person. I did sports like soccer when I was a kid, maybe a little, church baseball, or something like that. But not the best athlete out there, not really into it. I'm kind of Ferengi in the sense that I'm like, all this hard work accumulates to what? I do this. What's the profit or the pleasure? Very Ferengi in that respect. And so when I was a kid, I look back at it, and my stepdad watched football, but I didn't really understand it. It was kind of interesting. And I suppose if I'd really got into sports back then, if I really had that aspect in me, sometimes you can't gear somebody into that. You got to be into it. Who knows? I might have had a totally different outlook on it. But no, really wasn't into it. It was kind of interesting, kind of like, whoa, look, this team, they're bashing, blah, blah, blah. When I got into it as a young kid, I was kind of not going to lie, I always had a little chub on me, still to this very day. And I was sitting there, and Mom was like, well, soccer and soccer tryouts, or soccer, not tryouts, but soccer teams. And she was like, okay, we'll do soccer. The first few coaches I had for the first few years were okay. I think I did it 3 or 4 years. I can't remember. And then the last one I got, I got this guy. I think it might have been the third year. Last year I did it. And the first 2 years was this big portly guy, really good coach, cool guy. And then the last guy, he was okay, but I looked at it and I was like, okay, I was always a bench warmer. I was, the starting lineup, I wasn't on it. I didn't care. I just thought, whatever, it is what it is. I was more interested in the bucket of oranges and the other stuff. I mean, honestly, I did enjoy kind of enjoy soccer, but I wasn't like, this is my passion. Never been that person. And so at some point, somebody said something. I mean, I probably said something to somebody, and they said something. They're like, well, you're a bench warmer. And I'm like, whatever. And I was like, okay, whatever. I didn't know what it meant, and I didn't care. And they were like, do you even know what a bench warmer is? I'm like, yeah, whatever, something. Like, it's never on the starting lineup. You're the fucking weight of the team, blah, 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 which is kind of funny because there was another guy that was worse than me. So it was me and the other guy. We were consistently the bench warmers. And I was like, okay, well, fuck it. After a while, I was like, a few games, I talked to the coach. I said, hey, look, can you put me on the starting lineup? And I said, hey, look, dude, I'm not really a runner. I'm not a massive runner. I'm a great defender. And so he's like, yeah, I'll think about it, blah, blah, blah. Think about it means I'm going to do what I want, and I'm just going to ignore what you just said. Because we got to the next game, and basically I was bench warmed, and, I was sitting next to other fat kid who might have autism, and I was like, okay, I'll see how this is going. And when he put me in, he had me replace a guy. I was doing a high running, fast running position. And by the way, I got to be honest, watching professional soccer comparatively to the soccer that we played as a kid, I think professional soccer is pretty gay. I'm not saying it to mess with people. I mean, like, it seems like once one person scores 1 point, all they do is try to play, keep away, keep away, keep away. When we were kids, we were trying to score as many goddamn points as we could. So it was going back and forth. Yeah, it's fun to some degree. But I was like, look, man, I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, so he bench warmed me and he had me do this position. And I'm like, and I said to him the next time, I was like, hey, look, can I be put in the starting lineup? Oh, okay, well, think about it. Next time came along, I was bench warmed again. And I'm like, well, fuck this, And so this guy gets called out. I think his name was Brett or something like that. He was a prick. And they're like, well, go in, push Brett. I'm like, no, send in the other guy. I have no interest. We'll talk about this later. And basically, this comes along, another guy gets pulled out because he's huffing and puffing. And I'm like, and he's like, well, go in. And I'm like, no, send him back out. And the kid who just got pulled out was looking at me like, you're disobeying the coach. And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing this. And, you know, and it's like, I'm like, he's like, yeah, send him back out. In fact, and then I walked up to my mom and said, look, this is stupid. Let's get the hell out of here. Yeah, I said it in 90s kidneyese, you know, like I said whatever version, not hell or whatever. But point is that I was over it. Because at that point I realized that if you're not one of those upper crust players, you're just one of the mini building blocks, shit rolling downhill players. And it's just like, why should I waste my time on this? If I'm not going to be put in a position that actually does this, and I'm not going to be, you know, rotated in occasionally, you know, little respect, why should I waste my time doing this? I was conscious enough as a kid to think that way. You know, kind of like sometimes I'd be at church and look around and go, this is completely ridiculous. And yet I sort of believe it because I've been indoctrinated to this. And, you know, when you're a little kid, you don't know any better, but you know it's kind of BS. But yeah, I mean, that's where I kind of got to the whole concept of team sports are fucking stupid. And coming to gaming, which I'll cover mostly in the next video, gaming was one-on-one. It was me versus this. Maybe it was me against another guy, like a fighting game. Or maybe they had one of those giant multiplayer games. But for the most part, it was you versus the machine. And I like that. You know, I didn't have to deal with anybody else or any, you know, higher ranking, hierarchy BS. No. I think this is kind of the reason that I sort of like fishing. I say sort of like. I mean, I bought a boat the other day off of one of my relatives because it was a good deal. $1,500 for a 20-foot pontoon, motor runs, needs new plywood, needs new seats, but pretty goddamn good deal for a boat. And I'm out there fishing sometimes, and I think to myself, I just put, like, my kind of attitude on fishing is that I'll fix the boat and do what I do with it, but if other people want to go fishing, if people contribute gas, because I own the fucker, I'm not trying to show off to other people. I don't give a shit. If other people want to help contribute to the gas fund, then we can go fishing. But if it's going to be people expecting me to dump like $30 to $100 in fuel, no, fuck that. I got better things to do with my life. And sometimes the fishing thing, by the way, doggo chewing on something. Sometimes fishing, I look at it, and if it's just me in a river alone with no other people around, or like when I'm out smelting, see, the smelting story is a whole different story. It's a whole different aspect. I'm out there picking mussels, digging clams, smelting. It's more like I'm harvesting food. I'm out there like once again, Ferengi mindset. I look at it and think to myself, well, how much effort, how much money invested versus how much profit? I come out here, I maybe pick up some mussels, dig some clams, get some seaweed, maybe pickle, get some bulk kelp to make into kelp pickles. I'm groovy. I'm groovy. I went out there, spent minimal, like you get one of those little cars that gets like 35 to 70. They got a car to get 70 miles to the gallon these days. Isn't that amazing? But it cost me almost nothing to get out there. And then I come back with lots of food. I like that. See, there's a profit in it. It's me versus the situation, and I can study that situation. I can learn it. Kind of like when you learn to do painting or drywall. Once you learn how to do it well enough, you're like, it's me versus the situation, and I can save a ton of money doing it. But like the whole thrill of things, like I've never actually really been a hunter. Never been and I'm not anti-hunting, by the way. I think it's cool. I do. I mean, but I've just never dedicated that self. And like, if anything, I'd like to one day maybe take up Canadian goose hunting. We're like, why Canadian goose? Because I hate those damn things. You go to a park anywhere in America and it's just covered in goose shit. And I look at that and think to myself, yeah, we need to lower those goose population, Plus, they're probably tasty. If not, we could mix them with some pork fat and some other stuff and make some delicious sausage. Like goose sausage, yay. But yeah, I mean, fishing, some of my buddies were so amped up about that. Like TJ was. He's all like, let's go fishing. He'd go fishing and he'd talk about bowling, listen to Jeff Rotal, listen to some tunes, and on the way out to wherever you're going. He was all about it. And so I was more like, he wanted to go fishing. And so I basically was like, okay, I'll go fishing. And a lot of times, to tell you the truth, the best fish that you're going to catch is either during a salmon run, assuming there's a run worth fishing, if they'll even let you fish it. Or it's the fish you're not even supposed to catch, but it keeps biting your fucking hook because there's too many of them now. Like, you don't want to catch them. You throw them back, the Dolly Varden. But because you always got to throw them back, they're everywhere. They're fucking everywhere out there. And so I've never really, like, coming back to the numbers of it, and I'll probably use these numbers later when I talk about the smelting stories. I just got to be honest about it. I look at it and I think to myself, I'm like, okay, well, for all the energy and money and time I put into this, forget time sometimes, like, especially though, but when you do trucking, you do think time, like when you can make about $50 an hour for sitting on your duff, you do start to think to yourself, I could literally sit for 2-3 hours on my duff. Let's go 4 hours and I get all the fish. I'll have more fish from the Dollar Tree than I'd ever buy, ever need. And people are like, well, what about the experience? And that's where it comes into time versus experience. Like when fishing's really good, it's awesome. But when fishing's meh, then you think to yourself, I could have been playing a video game. And I guess this is where we end the sports conversation and go on the next video into the aspect of gaming and how part of the reason throughout the course of my life, I love it, and things that changed when I lived in the woods. So yeah, Freedom Phil. This is just talking a little bit of weirdness of my life. And yeah, like, subscribe, take it easy.